If you want to open your Bibles to Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, I'm going to read like 8 or so verses there, and then I'm going to read, if you want to put your fingers there and then flip over to, is it chapter 8 or 9? What did I tell you? Chapter 9, verse 7. Okay, so I'm going to read chapter 3, verses 1 through 8, and then flip over to chapter 7, or chapter 9, verse 7. Ecclesiastes 3 starts out this way. There's an appointed time for everything. There's a time for every event under heaven, a time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to shun embracing, a time to search, which is weird to me, a time to search and a time to give up as lost, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear apart and a time to sew together, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. So go then, eat your bread in happiness and drink your wine with a cheerful heart, for God has already approved your works. Let your clothes be white all the time, and let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the woman whom you love all the days of your fleeting life, which he has given to you under the sun. For this is your reward in life and in your toil in which you have labored under the sun. God, this morning, I pray that you would help make clear Ecclesiastes. And I know, God, all the years that I have used this book foolishly and wrongly, and I also know, God, how easy it is for each of us just to steal a verse here, a verse there, and try to create an idea of you. So I pray, God, that you break all of those ideas of you that we have. And that when we finish with our time here this morning, God, of singing and talking and encouraging one another, that we would be more in love with you when we leave than when we showed up. I ask this not because of any merit or right that I have, except that your Son bought that for me. And so I love you, Jesus. Amen. Ecclesiastes is a strange book. And I've been depressed the last couple weeks reading this book, and not because... How many people in here know anything about Ecclesiastes? You can raise your hand if you do. Not very many. A few. Okay, Ecclesiastes is this book in the Bible that is supposed to be super sad. You read it, and it basically starts out, and he's like, hey, the preacher's going to tell you the story. And his story is this: life sucks, and everything is vanity of vanities. It's futility of futilities. And he says this over and over and over again. And he says, you can make money, but it's all vanity of vanities. You can fall in love, but it's all vanity of vanities. You can get in a fight with your best friend, but it doesn't matter because it's all vanity of vanities. You can work hard all the days of your life and follow God the best of your ability, and you're still going to die. Where last week, Terry mentioned this to me, Wilson. I guess she talked through Proverbs last week, and she was saying how that is all, this is how it should be. And then Ecclesiastes shows up and says, yeah, but this is how it really is. I'm sure you've been in those kind of situations before when somebody kind of shares something with you and then somebody else is like, yeah, but I'll tell you how it really is. For me, it was marriage. When Shannon and I first got married, everybody that I talked to, maybe I talked to the wrong kind of people, but they were all like, marriage is beautiful, it is sweet, it is good, it is this, it is that. I would talk to my uncle, and he's telling me how that him and his wife had been married for like 20-something years, and they had never been in a fight. And so I had all these people telling me all these things that I'm thinking, oh, this is what marriage is like. And then we couldn't stand each other like 3 weeks into it, and it kept going downhill from there. And I remember there was this guy, and this man and woman, their name were Terry and Mary Lynn Keenitz, and I hardly knew them at all. Actually, it is, if you know Danica, it's her uncle and aunt. So they were married, they weren't her uncle and aunt before they got married, but after they were married, they were her uncle and aunt. And I always looked up to them and thought that they had this perfect marriage. And they had like 2 kids, and they always seemed sweet and lovey-dovey and all these kinds of things. And I knew what our marriage was like. And so we just kind of watched them. And I remember Mary Lynn got really sick, and she almost died. And so we went and visited them in the hospital. And she was getting better at this time, and I was standing there with Terry, and we're talking. It's like, so how's married? Like, how long have you been married now? About a year? And I was like, yeah. He's like, how's it going? I was like, it's good. It's good. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. And he goes, ours was terrible. And he just started telling me how it really was, and telling me we did this, we fought, I didn't think we were going to make it, all these kinds of things. And what that did for me was like, oh wow, I'm not alone. Like, we're not the only ones that are this way. That's what Ecclesiastes kind of is. It's this, you hear all of these stories. This is how you should live. Chase after wisdom. Love wisdom. Do wisdom. All these kinds of things. Wisdom is this beautiful thing that you need to have. And if you do it, things are going to go well for you, my son. And then you read Ecclesiastes and he says, you can gain all the wisdom that you want, and you're still going to die. In fact, it's better to be a living dog than a dead lion, he says. Because what's going to happen is you might have all this wisdom, but if you're wise and you're poor, coming from Ecclesiastes, no one will listen. Boss is going to be an idiot, and he won't listen to you. So is wisdom really the answer to everything? Vanity is vanities. Life is vanities. Futility of futilities. Life is futility. And you read it and you go on, and it's just verse after verse after verse of this. And it says, you can run after this, you can do this, but in the end, it's terrible. I've had 20 different wives, they were all terrible. And you go on and on and on, and you get to the end of the book, and I was just like, I'm so glad I'm done with this thing. And it didn't sound like God at all. It didn't sound at anything like Christ when he says, I've come to give you life and life more abundant. He said, I want to give you a peace that passes all understanding. So I looked up the word vanity of vanities, because it's all through Ecclesiastes. You know what the word really is? Breath. I don't know why. I don't want to get into why it's been translated so many times as vanity of vanities and futility of futilities. But the word is breath. Hevel is what it is in Hebrew. So I reread it with the author saying, this is what the teacher wants you to know. Breath. I thought about it a little bit. What is breath? I mean, it's here and then it's gone. But I need it every single day. Like the breath that I had 5 years ago when I was climbing up a 14,000 foot mountain in Colorado, does me no good today. The breath that I want to breathe tomorrow does nothing for me right now. The only breath that has any meaning in my life is that one. And in a minute, there'll be another one. But they happen so involuntarily that I even forget that they exist. But it is the very thing that gives me life. Breath of breaths. Everything's but a breath. So then I reread it. And I hear a man say things like, work hard. Find something you love and do it. Because life is just a breath. A breath of breaths. And whether you're doing something that you love or you're doing something that you hate, whether you're working hard or you're not working at all it is but a breath. The family that you love, the family that you want to spend time with, it's just a breath. And you know it. As you get older in life, you see it. The minutes may drag on, but the years fly by, and all of a sudden, I can't have that breath anymore. And I have it here is a man who's begging, who's teaching, who's lived a full and long life, and he's looking back over it and he's saying, listen to me. Don't live in the future and don't live in the past. You can't hold on to either one of those things. He says strange things. He says, I've been rich, I've been poor. It's better to be rich. But at the end of the day, they're all breaths and breaths. Life is just a breath. I slept in a bed with one I loved, and I slept in a bed alone. And it's better to sleep with the one you love. Because life is just a breath. Here one moment, and gone the next. So I start surveying my own life because that's the only thing I can do. And in my own life, I see all these times that I've lived in the past. But I see even more times that I live in the future. Well, one day I'm going to do this, or someday I'm going to do this, or if this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, this will happen. And I have all of my energies and all of my emotions are stuck either in the future or in the past, and then in the moment. When my son says, hey, Dad, can you show me how to do this problem? I go, hold on. Give me a second. Can't you see? I'm thinking. I'm doing something really important. I'm planning for my future. I'm complaining about my past. I'm writing something on Facebook. I'm doing all these different kinds of things. Give me a break. But that is life. Breath of breaths. This moment. Not that one in the future and not that one in the past. Just this one. I remember when we lived in Colorado, I got super stressed. I before, but I got extremely stressed out. We were remodeling a house that we bought for $25,000, if you can imagine what it looked like. So I was starting, and I had just purchased 80,000 books, and I was having to sort through all the books and put them in the right places, plus pick them up at this guy's house. I had a newspaper that I was trying to hire and fire people for. I started a church because that's just what you do. I had a young family, and we were living in a house that our friends had left us to live in, and it had been foreclosed on, and we didn't know that until the sheriff showed up and said, you can't come in this house anymore. So I was extremely stressed out at this point in my life. And I remember we went on this little mini vacation to Estes Park, Colorado, which is up in the mountains in the Rocky Mountain National Forest. And of course, there's always snow there, and we got snowed in, great big, and so they felt like 3 years. It probably hadn't been that long. So we went and got a movie, and it was one of the fantasy books with like the little tiny people. Yes. What are those things called? Hobbits? Yeah. It was one of the Hobbit movies. So I'm not a big fantasy person, and so we put it in, and we're just sitting there watching it, and I'm like, man, this thing is so boring. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what hobbits are. Like, where did these things exist? Like, I'm just so confused. And then this big wizard dude walks in, and he's got a pipe that's like this long, and he's smoking his pipe, and he looks so relaxed. And I was like, you know what? I want to get a pipe. But I live in Colorado, so like you have to be careful at this time, you know, when you go into a place to buy a pipe, what kind of, I know I don't want a glass one, I know I want a wooden one, and these kinds of different things. So I got a corncob pipe because I didn't want to spend $12 or whatever for a wooden one. So I got this corncob one, and I called I don't know how you would describe Shay and Henry, but like my Rastafarian friend, and he came over and showed me how to pack the pipe with tobacco and how to light it and smoke it, and I was like, yeah, this isn't that great. But I continued trying to do it. But what happened is I sat on my front porch trying to light that pipe for an hour and a half. And I finished, And Shannon was sitting out there with me, trying to coach me and help me along. And I was like, man, this is terrible. And she said, yeah, but we sat on our porch for an hour and a half. So I picked up pipe smoking. But you know what? No matter how relaxing that can be, I can't hold that smoke in. Like right now, it does nothing for me. And even this breath that I'm breathing, if I tried holding this in this moment and just to carry it with me, because I'm like, man, this is such a great moment. I pass out. It just doesn't work because life is not designed that way, because we are not called. We all want to be called to a destination, and we sit there and we seek after that, but God did not call arrivers. Christ called followers. And it's a path, and it has ups, and it has downs, and it has lefts, and it has rights, and it has moments when I can sit on my front porch with my wife for an hour and a half and just relax in the summertime evening, and it has cold winter days when we're stuck inside and we're all arguing and fighting. And if I can find God in the midst of the summer days, I have to be able to find Him in the cold dead of winter, when I'm all alone with my thoughts and frustrated. Because if He's not there, He's not in the good times either. Because breath of breaths is just a moment. It's what we have with Him. He's the breath of life. That first passage that I read, there's a time for war and a time for peace. I've said before, there's a kind of peace that can only be experienced after war. There's a time to rest and a time to work. There's a kind of rest that can only be experienced after a hard day of work. There's a time to rip, to sow, to break apart, to repair, to hurt, and to heal. And it's the journey through those things and with those things and taking the moment that Christ has us in and recognizing how He is in that moment, regardless of where it is. And then we can echo, like with the Psalms that are all praise and exciting and happy. If I'm in the pit of hell, you're there. And if I'm on the highest of highs, you're there too. And we can read through Ecclesiastes and read all these different kinds of things where he says, I've seen rich men steal. And I've seen servants ride on horses while princes walked alongside. I've heard good men lie. I've seen bad men do good and good men do bad. And then you hear the echoes. But I've never seen the righteous forsaken. Because Christ didn't call arrivers, He called followers. And so much of our life is spent wanting to be in this place or be back in this place. But He's called us on this journey. And I don't know why it's this way, but we can see it. If we just look at people. My sister and brother-in-law showed up. They don't listen to my podcast, so it doesn't matter. My sister and brother-in-law, I went to D.C. and picked them up, and we were sitting at Starbucks, and my sister's sitting right across from me, and I've seen her like once in the last 8 years. And I'm looking at her, and there's things that are so familiar about her, but there's things that are so different. Like I couldn't quit staring because I was just like, you kind of look like that same little sister that I knew, but in so many ways you don't look like her at all. Because life moves. And if we fall into the trap of holding it still, we're either going to get sick, we're going to pass out. You just can't do it. Life is about breathing in and breathing out and taking a step forward and taking a step backwards And just like in this book of Ecclesiastes, he says, if you're rich, that's fantastic. But if you're so rich that you do nothing, you're not going to be able to sleep. And if you're poor, that's fine too. But if you're so poor and you don't want to do anything, you're not going to be able to sleep. Because life is just a vapor, a breath. If you fight and argue your whole life, you're not going to have a very peaceful life. But you can do it. You can spend your breath that way. But if at all possible you make peace with all men, will you grab a peace that the world just doesn't understand? And that's fine too, because you have this one breath. How are you going to spend it? And then we get to this part. Ecclesiastes chapter 9. Go then, eat your bread in happiness, and drink your wine with a cheerful heart. If we turn the page to chapter 10, he says it this way. Parties are for laughter, and wine makes the heart merry. But money is the answer to everything. You should try to figure that one out. Unless your king is a fool. You know what's scary? And I'm the one ruling in my life. And all of a sudden, it doesn't matter what kind of things are in my life. It doesn't matter all these different kinds of things, because I take myself down these paths and I stick myself in the future, or I stick myself in the past, or I lock myself into these circumstances or these times or these events, and I can't see the moment that is right here and right now. Because if I did, then when I would lay down at the end of the night, I would enjoy the ones that I love. And then finish out the book, and I would remember the Creator all the days of my life. And I would follow and I would seek after Him in humility and in kindness. And I think it's such a telling truism that so much in the language of the Bible, it is seek after Him, not arrive with Him. Seek and you will find. And the other beautiful part is it doesn't matter where we start. It doesn't matter the circumstances of life. Because our King is a healer. And He finds us wherever we're at, and He gives each of us the same breath. He breathes into my lungs the same breath that He breathed into Adam's lungs. The breath and spark of life. And it just comes down to, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to breathe the breath that He's given me today? Live in the life that He's presented to me today? See the opportunities in this life today while it is called today? Or am I going to keep looking back to better days and hoping for future good ones? Let's stand and sing.